Okay, see if we can find this right spot here that we did yesterday. Let's raise this a little bit, then we can get a little bit more. There we go. All right, and let's get all right. So here we are with the 109. There's going to be some form of no good anymore. And let's see how the decals are doing here. These old decals seem to be all right. I'm going to go ahead and see. I'm going to add a tiny little bit of the stickum stuff on both of these. It might be too much. Matter of fact, it is. That way we can leave the wings attached while we dry brush this, weather it. Now I'm not going to focus on the propeller. Or any other markings. I can come in and weather them independently. And then, of course, we've got some stickum on the back, which hopefully will stay on there for the protection of the bots, so the bots don't get offended. This message is held for review. Why? Okay. I'm glad that was held for review. That's not appropriate for this channel. All right. How's my day going? It's going well. It's going well. We're going to weather this because this is supposed to be a crash measurement. And I haven't decided whether it's going to be one that got shot up at an airfield or one that just did a crash landing. Obviously not severe crash landing, but enough that it's not going to fly again. And it's objective for my little troopers to go and investigate something, maybe save the pilot or something, just the same way I did this armored car. Okay. So we're going to treat this exactly like if it was a tank, or one of my desert tanks. I was really happy with how those turned out. So the next step is we're going to do a dark sand thin, not super heavy, brush on top of that, dry brush, and then we're going to do pale sand on top of that. Get my pale sand out. This is what it is, and then we'll go in with pin washing things in black and things like that. You have an RC tank. They have a lot of those available now. I see videos of them all the time. I can't be into everything. The problem with RC tanks is then you have to have RC people, and they don't make them. Not yet. All right. We do need to do a white band on here. It's going to have a white band here. I don't know what number it's going to be on there. So I don't want to get dragged into all that stuff. I can always come in and dry brush that stuff later individually. We're going to have a white band here on the tail, a number here. The nose cone will be something different, as will the propellers. Okay, so right now I want to, it's looking like an Italian aircraft to me. Okay, as they use a very similar paint scheme in the desert. So here we go, dark sand. You're 10 years old. Of course it's okay, as long as you know how to behave. We'll find out if your parents raised you right. Why do I get notifications while I'm on here? Like, I'm busy. Leave me alone. All right, let's make sure we get, I'm actually going to need quite a bit of this. Unfortunately, this method includes it being, a lot of this being wasted, but that's just how it is. All right, so we're going to take a little bit. This is a brand new brush. We'll make sure that it doesn't have, sometimes they put almost like a little bit of a lacquer or something on them so that they look all like nice in the package. All right, a little bit of this here. Get almost all of it off. And we're going to go with the airflow. You know, this isn't working. I figured it'd be cool because everybody could see how it is, but that's not working. We'll assemble the pieces afterwards. And now it is the desert. Remember, this swirling sand and stuff, even if it's a little bit, it's going to wear out this leading edge more than in other places. Now you can see the difference between one and the other. Good morning, Justin. So the only problem with this model is going to be that this is an older model that has raised things where there should be recessed things. It basically has nothing recessed on it, other than like where the flaps are and things like that. At least on the trailing edge. And I used some microsol. It didn't set all the way. I could have popped the bubbles and then let it sit some more. But hey, this could be paint that's bubbling up from being hot. I'm going to leave it as is. Okay, I'm going to do the bottom just for good measure. There might be a plane. The bottom of these wings aren't going to be shown, but I want to see what this looks like maybe on another plane. I did not put the markings on it. On the underside. What does that make that sound? The fucking volume's not on. Maybe it is. Got turned on at some point. Okay, so here you can see the difference here. So we'll do the same thing with the underside of this. This actually doesn't take very long at all. And there's a little bit of a, I believe this is the radio that's underneath here, this radio antenna that juts out. Now we'll do the fuselage. So the main thing is you want to keep everything moving. You don't want to sit here and go, I don't know what unit I'm going to make this thing, and the next thing you know, you spend hours and you haven't got anything done and you get discouraged. Just jump in. We're going to know this is the finish that we want on the aircraft. We know we're going to dry brush it this way. So just avoid the other stuff and you can come back and retrofit it. I'm going to move the camera because I've got to dry brush over the crooked spider. Ridiculous that you have to take this kind of care so that the bots don't get offended. But it's either that or I'll have a bunch of problems. Or I'll have to paint the plane without one of these, which is also unacceptable. All right, let's put the pasties back up on the genitals of the plane. Okay. And besides, this is actually good practice for when I do build the underside of a plane that isn't going to be crashed. I'll at least see if I actually like the way this looks. Now, I've seen the things that I've done this far and know that I can't make that judgment call yet. Because sometimes you think that things aren't looking the right way just yet, and then you go move it, add another step, and it comes to life. And that comes to life step is going to happen when I put the black lining on it and then I dry brush over the black lining. And the color that we're going to dry brush over in the next step is just a little bit lighter than this one. I'm really not worried about the instrument panel. So now, let me take a step away from it. And let's see if we like what it looks like shading wise. Of course, it's got no black line. That's where we're going next. And I like to compare it with something like this. Yeah. All right, let's rinse this off. And let's go get the Nuln Oil out. And I am going to put it on some kind of a base. Whenever I decide if it's going to be just kerplunked, they're damaged, or like skid, and have some dirt to show. I haven't decided yet. All right, we're going with, where's my Nuln Oil at? Lovely. Well, we'll find out. This is my first modern plane. Unfortunately, meaning I haven't built one since probably 1985. I haven't built one since I was a kid. We'll see. Like I've said before, the only downside to this thing is it's a pretty basic model, and it has raised parts where it should have panel lines. But I didn't want to try this on a really good model of a plane and then realize that I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Actually, I do know what the hell I'm doing. I've just never done it before. I've never done it before in an aircraft, but it works really well for tanks. So there's no reason why it shouldn't work on here as well. Now, I don't want to grab the brush that we're using for figures because it's still grade A. But that's what I've learned about what works for me is I don't want to think about things for too long about, well, what about this? Is this going to happen? Is this going to turn out okay? You just spend too much time and you don't do anything. I'm going to pull this Nuln Oil out. We'll have it here in an accessible location, and let's close this thing back up. Now, this is going to take forever because there's a shitload of panel lines on here. And it's going to look darker, and then we're going to dry brush over it again. So I'm not focused on the bottom of the plane. I did not attach the wings because I may show them separated from the actual fuselage, but not separated and flipped upside down. That'd be a little too much. Anthony, welcome. And my next plane's in the same boat too, from the standpoint that it also has raised features where they're supposed to be sunken. It was a $4 model, you know. Mr. Barnes, welcome. Welcome back. If my goal is successful with this, the reaction it's going to have is it's going to make people say, I didn't know that old model could look that good. That's the objective. I did it when I was doing 15mm figures. People would be like, I'm not going to paint those figures. Those are old and piece of crap. I said, well, how about give them some respect and some TLC? And then see what we can do with them. See, I just bought a cheap model because I hate to trash an expensive model. I've never done this before with aircraft. I was actually looking for some destroyed aircraft, like, broken models at a flea market, and couldn't find any. All right, so we did the little flap section there. Yeah, hit the subscribe button and the like. I don't know. I don't know which one's more important. I don't watch videos on YouTube algorithms. I think the subscribe is more important because, well, if you want to come back for more, the subscribe button is the important one. Because then you'll get notified when there's other videos. They did away with the unlike button, didn't they? There used to be an unlike button. The ratings used to be a lot different. The ratings on like eBay were a lot different. I don't know. It's been a long time. It might even be 20 years ago. I was thinking it's more like 10. With the negative reviews. I don't know. I bought a lot of things and sold a lot of things on eBay. And the only issues I got were one guy that he sold me a tank model. I don't remember which one it is. I've probably built it already. And it didn't come with any decals. And when I went to contact him, I tried contacting him for a month and got no response. And I finally sent him some negative feedback. Said, hey, this came without, decals. And the guy, of course, then he responds immediately saying, well, you should have contacted me. And his exact words are, eat the negative feedback. Like when you buy something and the seller doesn't give you feedback. Well, that's what I do now. Now what I do now, like I have enough feedback on eBay that I don't really need somebody else's feedback anymore, to get some respect, I guess. But I don't really need somebody's feedback. So if I buy stuff, I don't give people feedback until I've gotten it. Like I gave you the money, where's my feedback for paying you? And if people don't do it, well, then I don't give them feedback for the sale, because I don't want to like pay for something and then they don't hold up their end of the bargain. And then I call them out on it and then like, well, I haven't given you feedback yet. So here, eat some negative feedback. Like, dude, I did my part of the bargain. And like now, I don't care. I don't care about decals now. So that was a long time ago. I wonder what vehicle it was. So instead of picking out every individual rivet, I'm actually spreading this along the line, but thinly. What's going to happen is when I come to the next step of highlighting it, all that's going to disappear. And you could tell, I don't know if you could tell the difference here between the one that has, just look at the wingtip here, between the cross and the end. Just making it pop. Now there's a company I know that does these in larger scales, but they actually make stencils. So they make like a real stencil you put over where you want the cross and you can airbrush it. Which I'd be perfectly fine doing. Actually, I'd rather mark it and then hand paint it. My skills are in hand painting things, not airbrushing things. The fact that I can airbrush something and not make a mess out of it is a minor miracle. Am I basing the plane? I am. I just don't know if. So the whole thing is that one of these battles that I am fascinated by is Operation Crusader, and the battle at the airfield of City Rizet, where the 7th Armored Division went in, tried to give Rommel a rise so that they could all be concentrated and knock out Rommel's tanks, to put it simply. And Rommel, in his method of aloofness, didn't fall for it, didn't think it was a real attack, whatever. So Rommel never reacted. So the British go, well, if you're not going to react, we're going to make a deep penetration. And they did. They punched a hole. And of course, nobody really knows where everybody is, that kind of stuff. But they punched a hole and headed for this airfield. Actually, I don't know if they knew it was there or they just headed, and there happened to be an airfield there. The airfield in City Rizet, which is not a tarmacked airfield. There's probably just some levelish ground that they probably leveled even more, a couple buildings there, that kind of thing. And one of the tank regiments, one of the tank battalions, I gotta call them that. Regiment sounds like it's too big. One of the tank battalions of the 7th Armored, I want to say it's the 6th RTR, that was fully equipped with Crusader 1s, broke into the airfield and caught a bunch of planes on the ground. Actually, they caught all of the planes that were there on the ground, except one. One managed to take off and destroyed the planes on the ground. Between, I don't know, I'm sure they put a 2-pounder through some of them. I mean, I don't care that there's no HE. You take a 40mm shell, even if it doesn't detonate, you're going to put holes in places the plane doesn't need to have holes in, that's going to make it compromised for takeoff. So they shot up a bunch of aircraft on the ground. Hard to determine whether they were German or Italian aircraft. I'm pretty sure it's one or the other, maybe even both. And eventually they got repulsed, but the battle swung across that airfield multiple times. And then, you'd have the destroyed planes that you have to fight around. And eventually there was tank wrecks that they had to fight around. And, it was just like it's like the desert, but it's like a junkyard. And ever since I read about that, I'm like, man, I'd sure like to make some aircraft that are destroyed, but not destroyed from, oh shit, we can't keep it up and they crash. More like they were just sitting there parked, almost like that silly Rogue Heroes thing. And they blew them up. You know, like they're blown up in place. Like there was nobody even in the aircraft. They just got shot up by, you know, so forth. So that's why the landing gear on it. I haven't decided if they're going to be crumpled underneath and it's just laying on the ground or some version of it. I haven't decided yet. It's going to have damage on it, but it's not going to be like severe looking damage. Because if you do severe looking damage, then you have to reconstruct things with like little wiring under. I don't want to get into that. Okay. We're not entering, this isn't the House of Verlinden, you know? You get stencils for the splinter camouflage. Oh no, I think that's easy. I got tape. Well, I don't have any splinter on these planes, but I like the German camouflage with splinter. I don't care for German tanks before Barbarossa or North Africa. I don't, for different reasons. But aircraft, yeah, I would do I would do aircraft for Battle of Britain. Absolutely would do aircraft for Battle of Britain. But this step takes forever. I really like doing this because it's worth it. It's really, really worth it. It's actually moving along faster than I thought it was going to. So if I make this crash like on the ground with some holes in it, I could use it for both. I could use it for, hey, we got to go save some pilot that crashed his aircraft ever so lightly and is alive, at the other end of the table. Some German recon forces have to go do that. And I could use it for one that is City Rosé. And that's probably what I'm going to do. Because that way you get to get double use out of each one of them. Just like I like doing my German tanks, for the desert. Was it a yellow tank that some of the yellow came off of it and you could still see the gray? Or was it gray that just got dusty? Or a little bit of both? You don't know. What do you want it to be? It's like my form of poetry. What's the poem mean? Well, what do you want it to mean? And one thing I've learned about myself is I don't want to throw up hiccups that keep me from being productive. Like, for instance, I know this is going to have a white band on it, and I don't know what number it's going to be. So instead of spending weeks trying to finalize what number it's going to be and not painting what I'm doing now, let's do this now. We can always put the number on later and just weather that area around the number, as I've done that sort of thing before. Because I'm going to do this the same way, anyways. I got to keep the momentum going. As soon as you start looking at other things, you find something else you're interested in, and this doesn't get finished. Kind of like the P-40 and the Spitfire. But I am going to do the P-40 and the Spitfire. I'll do the P-40 first. I'll do the P-40 after. I might actually do the P-40 next. It's not going to be crashed. Although it could be. I don't know. I have to keep the momentum moving. As soon as I, stop moving, I'm like, I'll get excited about something else. So I got to keep my excitement level of being like, man, I can't wait to see how this next stage looks. But this model show I went to, I actually wanted to get Italian aircraft. And Nobody was selling. The only Italian aircraft that was there was they had some G50s, would have been perfect. They had some G50s, but the G50s were by a company called, I believe it was called Schmer, Schmer, in 1/50th scale. And that's a total Lindbergh move. Lindbergh has all these models and scales that they aren't compatible with anything else. The box scale, we used to say, like to figure out, well, what's the smallest box we can get it in, and then just scale it appropriately or whatever. But I did not watch videos on how to weather aircraft because I like how my tanks look, and they need to look like they're weathered by the same person. I don't want my planes to look a certain way and my tanks to look a different way. They need to be, they're all weathered by the same earth. And this is real easy to do. It's forgiving. There's no toxic chemicals. It's all products that are readily available in my area. I don't have to mail order strange things and spend crazy prices doing it. It's looking pretty freaking good. And it's going to get dry brushed even more. It's like, man, you can't really see the rivets that well. You will on the next one. This actually has some pretty decent riveting. Although I never really thought of a Messerschmitt as a plane that has a lot of rivets on it, but I guess they all kind of have to, or it's going to fall apart. You're back. I didn't know you left. It's not my turn to watch you, man. You're free to come and go as you please. I looked at your little symbol there. I think it's a book. I can't make out what it is. But I looked at it in a glance. It looked like the Spanish flag, which reminded me, my daughter was freaking out because she's in Spain right now and they lost power all over the entire country yesterday. Luckily, she wasn't in an elevator or something like that. She's ready to come home. I would be too. That's a long time. Been out there like 3 months, I think, or something like that. Okay, this swing is done. Now what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to skip ahead just for the looks. And I'm going to go ahead and paint this cannon. Actually, I think it's the machine gun. Black. Because otherwise it's an eyesore. when I go and do the next step. Now, if you guys can tell the difference on the between this and this. It's like night and day. Spain, Portugal, and south of France all lost power, yeah. I don't know, was it a cyber attack? Just glad she wasn't in an elevator or on the metro or something like that. I think I was reading there's 174 elevator rescues in Madrid alone. That would be bad. All right, let's do the other wing. Let's go ahead and paint this black while we're thinking about it. But I'm going to do a make-believe plane number. I don't want, oh, that's Hauptmann, Prellinger's tank or plane or something. Like, no, it's going to be some make-believe thing. Apparently, unique atmospheric event. The cyber attack is not ruled out yet. Yeah, that's what I read. A unique. Well, name it. What is it? Which one? Oh, it's just something did the sun fart too hard or something like that. Sun farts. The sunspots or whatever. Solar flares. Doing the planes are a problem though with that crooked spider on the tail. We have to put a crooked spider condom on it. So for the bot's protection. Like, man, you should have put a lot of effort into a wreck. I said, well, it's got to look good. It's your Brits' faults, man. You see those magazines and the stuff in there is just like freaking gorgeous. I'm like, nope, I'm playing on something that looks like that, or I'm not going to play at all. You see somebody play, these games that have this wonderful terrain, even though the rules are lame. That's the goal here. Make something in America worth fighting for. I don't think these raised panel lines are going to be a big deal. It's still going to get the gist across. Now, the other two measurements I have, which is another E and another F, which the Fs were just coming into service at this time. They don't have raised panel lines. So I got a chance to talk to the guys at the convention, and I was just kind of surprised of several things that I heard. First of all, they went gung ho for rapid fire, and now none of them are playing rapid fire. The only thing they're playing is command and colors. They've rebased everything for command and colors, which I knew they were playing before, but and I know that Mitch posted some of the scores. I haven't really looked at it. I don't really post anything on our war game group anymore, on the HMGS group, because I'm not gonna take my convention. There's no point in posting figures of my tanks on the HMGS site. I'm not going to go to an HMGS show and run the game there. You know, I played the game. I played one game this weekend with all people that I know, two people that I'm not real familiar with, but I know had a great time. Nobody was a penis wrinkle. We played a, what's it called? Blood and Steel, Chinese and French in like the 1880s. And I didn't care who I played. We played Chinese. And again, it was a fun game, but it doesn't make me want to read about history. The game is a little too generic, that like everything can fit in there. So it doesn't get my history juices going. Rapid Fire Reloaded seems to be making rapid fire more acceptable these days. Yeah, I don't mind the scale of, I mean, if I can't play 1-to-1, I want to play 1-to-5. I'm very accepting of that 1-to-5 scale, where, a tank company is 3 vehicles or so forth. I like that. It makes sense to me. I've played it a lot. When I played a couple games of rapid fire, I didn't like that. There's not a lot of useful thing. There's not a lot of different ways to skin a cat. You know, it's like, I'm just going to sit here and shoot. Or, you know, I don't want to move because if I move, then I don't get to fire at this point. And I'd rather not take the risk of doing that. It's not my preference. And it's way too structured. It's way too structured. I'd like to play a game of that, whatever that PK is, just to see if I even like it, or it's way too chaotic. But I guess that's how they play. Who's the colonial game? The colonial game is that way. The colonial game is you don't know who's going to go next. You pull cards. I don't mind card driven as long as I don't have to be the one to shuffle the cards. I don't want to shuffle the cards. I'd rather do the laundry than shuffle the cards. I think I am going to do something. Because I can have it start doing its magic while I'm doing something else. As soon as I find out where my blades are. But when I I know what the structure is next. Because see, here's the thing about knowing what the structure is next. I don't want to try to figure out. I don't want to do long range planning. And if I know what's going to happen in what order the next 3 phases, some people like trying to figure that shit out. And I'm like, I'm just not interested in that. Okay, this one's done. I'm going to go ahead and pop. Pop this decal. And then we'll put some more microsol over it. I've tried combining other rules with the activation system. The movement in rapid fire sucks. Where it's like, oh, all these tanks all move the same. I'm like, no. It needs something. It's going to paint over where the decal is. I like this. I don't have to have this. I don't have to have this done by Saturday or something. Like, screw that. You would enjoy the battle rules for PK as they're fairly generic, but the card-driven activation system works really well. It's not a game that I'm familiar with at all. I remember back in the days of when I used to check in the early 2000s when I'd check, and I'm not going to do this one yet because I'm working on stuff on it. Making a discernible difference. I bet it will. I'm hoping to have, I've had Microsoft for a long time. I haven't had a lot of opportunity to make it, to do some magic with it. And people used to complain about PK. But, it's like what you said. You like things that add random variable movement, as I do. I kind of like, that's one thing I actually like about Sword in the Flame, is that you get to roll to see how far you can move. Now, I would actually prefer that you say what you're going to do, and then you move. You know, you want to move full speed, and they normally move 3 die 6, and you say, well, I'm going to move them that way, and then you actually roll 4 on 3 dice, which is not likely to happen, but it could happen, and you only move 4 inches that way. So I like the surprises. I like the vehicle combat and command decision. I just don't like the infantry combat. And the problem is that at the range that the infantry actually can do something, the vehicle combat is like automatic hits. It's 9 out of 10 type of thing. Unless you roll 10s, you're going to hit. And I don't mind making my own rules. I'm leaning towards doing that, but I can't do a bunch of different scales. I got to do this skirmish stuff. Nobody else does this on this scale. It makes me happy. It makes me want to create things for it. It makes me get excited about painting some guy named Kirillin or whatever it is, and that he has a personality, that he's hiding in a bread closet or something like that. That's the kind of stuff that I want to, that's the narrative that I want to be interested in developing. Other people might want to see these grand maneuvers. That just doesn't excite me. That doesn't excite me. How are we doing on time? Okay, we need to grab a soda. I have a little longer paint session than normal today. Sorry to disappoint you. And I'm going to get some more Nolan oil to finish this wing. Be right back. Thank you. I need an assistant. I didn't see your comment, Barnes. Too many comments came in. I turned my head up and I didn't see those new ones. Blitzkrieg Commander. Yeah, you were describing that one to me a few days ago. It looked interesting. I like that whole push your luck activation thing. You know, that's the one thing I really liked about DBA is there was a lot of different ways to skin a cat. It wasn't like you could do whatever you wanted to all the time. That was, you know, like, oh, well, we know we're going to do this turn. We know we're going to do this turn. It's like there was some variability. You know, this is an old model. Let's try doing a great job with it. I do that with miniatures. I'm like, they're old miniatures. Who cares? I said, well, how about give them some respect and see what they do to you? Let's see what they can do for you. That's what I hate about muting the microphone. I forget to come back. You're a huge fan of varied activation. Have you seen me play this skirmish thing where you activate each guy? It's slow, but I like it. But I think I'm going to try to screw with it. I'm going to try to mess with it. I'm going to be on here a little longer because I got to go to a annual checkup that, I'm just so excited to do. And it's almost an hour and a half later than I need to be at work. So I would probably be on here until another hour, if you guys can stand it. I'm just not interested in playing war games that always turn out the same way or the same type of vague narrative gets played. It's like, it just doesn't motivate me to paint stuff for it. What's up, Victor? You need to get your ass to work. Or maybe that's why you took that job, so you don't have to work. I got to go to the doctor today, so I get a later start today. I hate going to the MD. I hate going to MD. They're never on time. They're never on time. Everybody that works at the front desk is always grumpy. There's absolutely no point in going into work for 30 minutes, get soiled, and then go to the doctor. I do an earlier appointment. They don't do anything earlier than that. And I think I did decide I am gonna work on my birthday as much as I don't want to. I don't want to take a Wednesday off. You know, I gotta like leave everything done just to take a day off. Just come back and fix everything. I was off this last Friday for the convention. You would have thought I'd be gone for a week. All the problems that arose. Every day that goes by, I swear, this in this industry, people are worse and worse planners. And this is the other reason for not sticking on the wings. It's going to be easier to do this on the fuselage if the damn wing isn't in my way. Which means I'm going to hate life on the Walrus. I had to pre-glue that one. That thing went together really well, except the wing part was a little tricky. It wasn't terrible, but it was a little tricky. And thankfully, the plastic wasn't warped. You know, from the heat or something like that. I remember the first Panther I ever built. I was building it like when I was 13 years old. In 1/72nd, it had the hull. At the bottom of it was one piece, and the sides were each one piece. And there was a warp in there, and I wasn't smart enough to know about using the whole rubber bands and things to hold it together, or super glue it, or epoxy, or any of that stuff. Stuff that I could deal with now. So I had a hell of a time dealing with that thing. Well, it looks a lot better. So that's what we're looking at as far as you can look at the finish here between the two. I think that should show it. And we're still going to dry brush over this ever so lightly. Spanish Civil War. Never gotten into the Spanish Civil War. Spanish Civil War seems like you got bad guys on one side helping bad guys, and you got good guys on the other side helping bad guys that are also being helped by bad guys. Sounds like the Russian Civil War. Bad guys all around. All right, let's pop these little guys. Bad guys all around. All right, let's get... I'm kind of excited to use this product that I don't really ever find a use for it. But then I'm not really ever trying to put it over a really rough surface like this. I think they were all baddies. I'll use my imagination. Exactly. Well, they were. Oh, I meant, the Western allies. I don't think of the Western guys as the bad guys. I'm sure they did bad stuff, but, they're on the same side as the Soviets. Like, something ought to tell you that, what you're doing here is wrong. And, the other side's definitely being helped by folks that are not fun at parties. Although I do like the markings. I do like the nationalist markings on some of the German planes, the Condor Legion planes. That X looks pretty good. And I actually don't mind the Republican with the purple. The red, yellow, and purple. Okay, so we're having this one kind of do its thing. Let's move over to the fuselage. And we'll avoid, we've got our little protector of for the bots. We don't want the bots to get offended here. They didn't use Panzer IIs in Spain, did they? I don't think they did. I think it was just Panzer Is. This message is held for review. Oh no, what is it? Hopefully it's just a curse word. Not somebody wanting me to eat a roach. Oh. I don't know what that's in reference to, so. People were trying to sell me on why the Tamiya panel line stuff was so great. I'm like, I don't see any advantages over using Nuln Oil. And with Nuln Oil, I don't have to protect the finish with a clear coat. I don't mind doing a clear coat. I want to do the clear coat at the end. I don't want to do multiple clear coats in the middle of stuff. The methods I already use to paint things take too long as it is. I don't need to make them even longer. The Germans were sabotaged from within. Had this not been the case, the world would be very different today. Well, I don't know which Germans you're talking about, but one of my favorite fantasies, and I don't mean a fantasy like I wish this had happened. I wish World War I would have never happened. To be honest with you, it was the dumbest war I can think of on a. But my favorite fantasy is the Germans win the First World War in 1914. And just like how different is the world? I think it would be. I'd say it's even probably better. You know. There's a lot more. There's a lot of people that don't get killed 30 years later, still alive, for starters. Because I don't think of the World War I Germans as the bad guys. I mean, I don't think of them the good guys either. It's just kind of like Napoleonics for me. World War I's like Napoleonics. I don't really think of anybody as a bad guy in Napoleonics. Just people fighting over stuff that they shouldn't have been fighting over to begin with. Absolutely, World War I is what caused World War II. No doubt about it. So I played a Victorian era game. It's really loose rules. It really could be like almost any period, the way it's done. But anyhow, 1880s, colonial French versus Chinese. And I mentioned to the guy I was playing, and I said, this is a period that if I went back to playing naval games, that I'm not going to. Well, not playing them, just collecting them. That's what I would do. I would do a Victorian World War because anybody could have been on anybody's throats. You could have had hell. You could have had French and Germans be cooperating. And conflicts often, unlikely regions and things like that. Read World War, The American Front by Harry Turtledove for a what if of that scenario. It doesn't have a bunch of Confederates in it or whatever, because that's all I think of. I've never read Turtledove stuff, but every time I hear Turtledove, it's like, oh, it's one of them, the South will rise again guys. Yeah, we're working our way. On these panel lines. Now they look pretty sharp. They look like they're really dark. But when you dry brush over them lightly, that'll all disappear a little bit. Because the same thing happened on tanks. I'm like, man, it's awfully. It's either that or you've got something like this that's like not noticeable enough. So Turtle Dove. Turtle Dove sounds like a last name that goes like Nightingale. Turtle dove sounds like, some kind of man medic. Hold on, you're not doing well. We'll send in Harry to come see how you're doing. Yeah, we're not going to go there. Come on, man. You can't be serious. Freaking trolls. Yeah. You know, and I hate having to do this. I hate having to block this thing because blocking this thing doesn't allow you to have the discourse of why these guys sucked. Okay? When I was a kid, all right, true story. When I was a kid and started getting into World War II, an American, I always liked the German stuff looked cool. They had cool uniforms, they had cool names, they had cool weapons, they had cool kit. And as a kid, you don't know about that you're focused on the gear, not on the shipments and railroad cars of people, right? So you're not even looking at that part. That comes a little later. When you're like 10 and 11 years old, you know. And to me, this is just a symbol, whatever. And I always thought, hey, well, the Germans, World War II is just, them getting screwed out of winning the first one, right? This like second chance, and they had cool equipment, and they had some neat generals and stuff like that. And you start reading about this other stuff, and you're like, all right, well, maybe some of the guys that were fighting were you didn't know about it and all this kind of stuff. Then after a while, you're like, you know, it's bullshit. Now, you get these people that are like, you see them now, they'll post on Facebook, the defenders of Europe. The Germans are the defenders of Europe. All right. The only way that scenario can play out is if they're not extreme racists. Because, like, they were fine killing their own fucking people. It's not like, well, we went and we treated the Russians badly because they were Russians. Like, no, they were exterminating their own fucking people, which makes no sense. That's like Carthaginian shit, right? I always rip on the Carthaginians because, they go to war with the Romans and they don't sacrifice Roman children, which also is not cool. But at least it's the enemy. They're sacrificing their own children. Like, you don't sacrifice your own children, okay? You can't do that. The Germans would have been perfectly happy sacrificing their own people. Now, the guy in charge would have probably said, well, that's not my own people. But look, the reality is a lot of people of that background, I'm not going to say race, and I'm not going to say religion, because there's a lot of people that were shipped away that weren't religious. And I don't know that they're a different, I don't think consider them a different race. Race is just bullshit. But the Jews helped the Germans. They fought for Germany in World War One. I mean, not all of them, just like there's a lot of Germans that weren't Jewish that didn't fight in World War One for the Germans. But I'm just saying, But in World War II, how can you be the defenders of Europe? If they weren't racist and they were just military, like, if they were just like aggressive people like Alexander the Great or something like that, and the Russians had attacked them and they were defending Europe from the Russians. Okay, but that's not the case. That is absolutely not the case. So, and I'll be here to tell you the Russians aren't much better than the Germans. So they're the bad guys too, as far as I'm concerned. But when you're a kid, you're like, hey, this German stuff is cool. I say, yeah, the German stuff is cool, but, you remember reading an article where the French stood up to the Germans when they entered the Ruhr and changed history in that France became the hegemon in Europe. Well, it's happened before. My daughter went to Paris a couple of weeks ago, not this last weekend, with the one before. And I'm talking to her yesterday, and she goes, Daddy, the French really don't like the British at all. And I told her, I said, well, the British don't really like the French, but, they've been at it for a while. I mean, I get it, And that's not, individual people. I just mean, as a culture. I get it, But there's decent people everywhere. Except in the SS. There's no decent people in the SS. NKVD. There's no decent people in the NKVD. But when you don't allow to put symbols like this on platforms, it doesn't allow you to talk about how bad I think it's a good talking point of like how bad the regimes are. And this whole thing about German efficiency being really efficient, they were really efficient at some things and really inefficient in others. You've got this, and I haven't read a lot about it, and it doesn't really interest me, so I haven't read a lot about it. But there was a lot of guys that were good Nazis. I don't mean they were good people. I mean, they were friends of the party, right? They checked all the boxes that they needed to do so that people in the party, they got along well with them. But they were massively incompetent. But because they were card-carrying Nazis, they got away with being incompetent. Whatever the guy's name that was in charge of the railroad that was supposed to supply 100 trains to each army group each day for supplies and only gave them 8, and didn't lose his head over it. Stuff like that. French knight the English, the Scots, and the French were allies against England for centuries. Do the Scots and the Irish like each other? I mean, as a general rule. And I've touched on this before. This idea that somehow there's bad angst between the UK and the US, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. I certainly don't have it. I don't really have it against anybody, I don't really. There's decent people everywhere. It'd be like if you guys judged everybody that was American by the assholes in New York movies. Like, I don't live in, there's not New York people around here, okay? I'm not a fan of New York people. I'm not talking about Marcus, wherever he is. He probably got abducted by one of those New York people. I got some pretty thick skin, and I can't think anything good about Hitler. I really can't. I mean, he didn't even know how to wear a proper fucking mustache. He had a shitty uniform. Didn't know how to speak without hair getting in his face. I mean, he's literally good at nothing. Same goes for Stalin. What an asshole, Let's hope he was just a troll, isn't somebody who really believes that stuff. But a lot of it is just these people are thinking on levels that others just can't comprehend. Let's say you live in a country, okay, and you're the dictator of this country. I'm not going to try to give dictators ideas, but let's just hear me out for a second. So you live in this country, and you have this group of people. We're going to call them lemmings, right? And you have this group of lemmings that you don't like for whatever reason. They smell funny, whatever. You think that they're trying to bring your society down. So you don't like them, right? And you want to get rid of them. And you're in a death, if you're in a what you would consider a life and death struggle with the world, or your world's biggest enemy, right? Why would you waste resources shipping these lemmings away to get exterminated? Just send them to the front of the people that you're fighting and arm them. And then when you're done fighting this other thing, then you can do with them what you please. But I'm not thinking like a madman. And it's basically a madman, a deranged madman who does not think normally. Well, first of all, I wouldn't want to eliminate the lemmings. What's so wrong with it? I'd just like, look, you guys have to wear, if you guys stink, you got to wear deodorant now or put a bullet in your head. But it just doesn't make sense as a madman to waste resources on killing your own people when you're in a life and death struggle that it looks like you need every single resource available. Send them to the front. But you got to think like a madman. And it's really hard to think like a madman when you're not a madman. So, when we were kids, Russian front. Could the Germans have won? Oh yeah, all they had to do was just befriend the people that they came across. Because the people they came across, it's not like the Soviets treated them well with compassion. The Soviets basically treated everybody horribly, unless you were one of the few people in the hierarchy, and you were just worried about your life also. So all they had to do is just show a little bit of compassion for these people that they came across. It's kind of like the Aztecs, right? Like the Spanish came over here and they weren't nice people. But all they had to do is just be nicer than the Aztecs, which literally rounded people up into sacrifice. Like, when you're like the world's biggest asshole, it's really easy to find allies. Or it's like, man, anybody but you guys. And that's what brought them down. So all the Germans would have had to do is show some compassion. But I'm reading this stuff, and it's like the whole reason for going there is not to show them compassion. It wasn't to liberate them or to get more people in the greater Germany. It's literally to take their land and enslave these subhuman. Like, why would that occur to me as a kid? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, they're the same people to me. Maybe not culturally, but you got to think like a madman. I don't know. That doesn't make any sense. I can't even think like Phil Barker sometimes, much less a madman. What's Phil trying to say here? I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. But I'm not interested in reading, Karl Marx or Mein Kampf or any of that shit. I'm not interested in reading any of it. That doesn't interest me. I want to read about these machines and tactics and how they went about trying to get the upper hand against each other. That's what interests me. But then there's a little bit of a contrarian thing to me. You know, I was a kid, all movies, all war movies were all from American viewpoint. I just got tired of them. Like, I don't want to see more American viewpoint stuff. I want something different. You know, like, well, I need something for my Green Army men to fight. Well, there's Gray Army men. I said, yeah, but they're equipped the same way. That's stupid. Like, give me something different. Give me a different viewpoint. Let me paint something different. Not like American this, American that, American the other thing. And now with the models, you can definitely see that it's Germans, 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 the side Germans. Like, okay, I don't want all that either. Like, you need to have some balance. You know, you go to the history section in a bookstore, and it's Britain, 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 Britain. You know, if you're looking like at medieval stuff, like that's a lot like, what about French stuff? What about German stuff? What about, you know, medieval history? The kings of Britain, the kings of Britain, the Britain and Britain and Britain and Britain. I'm like, okay, there's, you know, it's all interesting. You can't have one thing without other stuff. The constant drum of the national myth. You know, I don't have anything wrong. I don't have anything against, and I want some variation. That's all. You know, like, I wouldn't be happy in the Soviet Union. Soviet. They gotta have something different, man. They gotta fight somebody. So today I'm going to try to. That's why I wanted to do this. So we're far along. Like, we've committed to working on this. Now, like, I've got all this time. I'm like, now I can't finish the measure Schmitt, right? I've got enough of this kind of stuff on here. Now what? Now what? (109E), yeah, man, you win the prize. No, we're not going to show. We're not promoting the Soviets either. Fuck the Soviets. And here's what my dad didn't understand. And my dad was, let's see, he would have been old enough to be drafted into World War II if he had been born in the correct country, because he wasn't in America yet. Apart from Airfix stuff over 50 years ago, I've not touched British stuff since. Okay. You gonna go back to it, or you probably just had your fill of it? I kind of feel the same way about American stuff, although I realize that, you know, there's a lot of people that don't like Sherman stuff, and I'm like, look, the Shermans can be cool if you do some effort. So I do have I feel like they've been disenfranchised a little bit. I hate listen to me speaking woke. Anyway, so my dad always said this thing. He never understood why the Western Allies helped the Soviets. And I agree with him. I wouldn't help the Soviets. I don't do Lend-Lease Soviet stuff. Fuck them. I don't like the Soviets. Doesn't mean I won't play them. I think they're the perfect enemy for the Nazis. I mean, that's, you know, they're both assholes. You know. Nazis aren't welcome here. Neither are communist. Go piss up a rope. couldn't afford to fight them too. I don't know. I think they were afraid. I think they were afraid of them falling. And if the Germans had been nice guys, which and they would have befriended the people in the Soviet Union. In other words, they wouldn't have any high insurrection risks. Yeah, that's really fucking dangerous because then you just basically can't get them to fall. You know, I mean, they got to fight the Soviets. That's tying up all their armies. But my dad's point, I think, was, you know, they made their bed with Hitler, and Hitler just stabbed them in the back first. Anyhow, what I don't do, so I would do Lend-Lease trucks. I don't want to do Matildas and Churchills at this point. Maybe at some point, but at this point, I don't want to do Shermans and stuff like that for the Soviets. They make them look shitty. You know, they paint them one color and they'll just put a big number on it. You know, and that's it. They're not very exciting at all. I'm okay giving them some Studebaker trucks or something like that. Same thing. I don't want to do German captured. I don't want a Sherman in German service. It's not my thing. I'll let other people do that kind of thing. And the thing with the Japanese are they're hard to understand from a Western viewpoint. They're almost like an alien culture. You know, this idea that it doesn't matter if you die. Like it's honorable to die in battle. And no. You make the other bastard die in battle. You make sure you survive so you can teach the next group of people. So it's almost like they're aliens from the way of thinking of most of us. With that said, they're fun to play in a war game. Mostly because, you know, you get to do ridiculous, you know, shit like that, you know. Hey, you on day release from wage today? I'm not. What kind of a cantankerous way to say you ain't working today, boy? Lord Waddington says, are you on a day release from a wage today? No, my lord and master got we hung them up. I've got to go to my annual checkup, which I never do, but I'm overdue for it. I want this ugly lady to tell me I'm really fat. That's what today is. Oh man, you're really fat. And I'm gonna say, well, I'm the customer. You just called the customer fat. Okay, ugly lady. And it's a little later than my start time, so day release. I love it, man. I love it. Oh man. So I unashamedly look at everything from a Western viewpoint. Sorry. I just, you know, doesn't mean I wouldn't play the Asiatics. I did the other day. I had a lot of fun playing the Chinese. I love playing Chinese. It's not modern Chinese. I'm not a fan of those. Not a fan of those commie pricks or whatever they are. Somebody said, "Oh, they're really just fascists." I said, "Well, they need to change their logo because, you know, red background flag doesn't, you know." I play IL-2. No, IL-2 came out too late for me. Like I didn't have a functioning computer when IL-2 came out. Let me get some more tea. So that's why I don't play it. And I'm definitely the weakest on planes because I haven't played as many plane games. I did play European Air War, Aces over Europe, Aces over the Pacific. Remember all those things? All those dynamics games? You had to try to figure out how to fly a plane with a mouse. That was always fun. And I never think that I'm like bad at flying games. I mean, I can't fly a plane worth a damn in War Thunder. I can't, I don't know what it is. I can't fly a plane worth a damn in War Thunder. That game's not calibrated well. I've had a couple of plane games on my phone. I could kick ass on those, but something about the controls on them, I just can't do well. I did okay on our Grand Theft Auto team, our Grand Theft 5 auto team. I was a pilot. I could fly better than anybody else. But just something about the way that some games are calibrated, you just can't. And I want to say I've played an IL-2 type game, or maybe even IL-2 on the console. And then you have all this HUD info. The problem with air games is a lot of these planes, this one being one of them, is a good aircraft if you're doing boom and zoom. And boom and zoom is no fun to do. Boom and zoom is absolutely no fun to do in a game. It's like, trying to do an end around with a U-boat on a convoy. Like, it just takes forever. I'm good at the flying part, then it's the divine wind and not the wargamer type. Aces High. War Thunder, not it. It's arcade. Well, I don't play those things much. I certainly don't spend real money to do them. It's just a way to see stuff in action. World of Tanks is awful. Their hit thing, their hit module, the damage module on War Thunder is much better than World of Tanks. But there's just too much HUD info. It's like you feel like you're in an F-16 Falcon playing some of these games. You're driving, sorry. Oh, no need to apologize. Be safe, man. Remember, you need to be on the lookout for everybody else that's on their phone commenting on a live video feed. Wait, be careful, look out. Thanks for coming by, man. Appreciate you. Yeah, so instead of cogitating about what number plane this is and what markings I'm going to do, I'll do that later. After, look, I've already committed to doing, look, we basically did all the black lining on this thing. Let's see. Let me turn this away so I have to remove the condom from the crooked spider. Ridiculous. I'm not doing a German aircraft without it. First of all, it looks weird. And second of all, I don't like these pricks. That doesn't mean I'm not going to paint them accurately, though. Just painting underneath it there. Let's put the condom back on. Okay. Don't want to get in trouble with the bots. Yeah, a lot of those games like War Thunder, you got to squint your brain to find out what's really happening. Enlisted is the same way. And there's some things I like about Enlisted, but it's like, all right, what can I do now? Oh, that costs real money. I don't want to do that. I don't, there's like a lot of like stuff that you have to like there's no point in paying for games that you can play for free. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be tired of anything. It doesn't really matter. That's why Germans made the 109 automatic radiators control so the pilot overhead was easier and so they could stick a 17-year-old in it. Pay to play. I just don't, I just, I don't like it. Pay to play is like this whole thing where they do stuff like Flames of War. And it's like, oh, they're going to release the Japanese. And I'm like, why wouldn't they have already released the Japanese? But okay. And then, oh, we're going to release the Japanese, but only 42 and 43. I'm like, the Codex mentality. It's the video game version of the Codex mentality. I'm not a fan of that. Let's see what this thing looks together. Now, we're still going to do the dry brush on it. That's going to make some of these panel lines a little bit more subtle. Man, it looks like a Stuka. With all these rivets and stuff, it reminds me of a Stuka. Let's flip this around so you guys can get a little better view. The camera's better in the other angle. Let's see if I don't knock everything down, though. Now, it's pretty prominent, right? It's pretty bright. Like, man, there's got an oil leak in every single one of those panels. So what we're going to do is we're going to give this a light dusting. We're going to give this a light dusting. Looks absolutely fantastic. Only because, Ben, you know that this isn't how it's going to turn out. And you've seen that I've done this. Man, that's too much panel line. And then we settle it out and it turns out okay. But at this point, had I not done it before, I'm like, man, this isn't going to turn out how I want to because it's got too much panel line. Yeah, it takes time. And this is an old model. And like I said, the only thing about it is there's raised lines, not the rivets, but the lines between the rivets. There's raised lines that should be indented. And as long as that doesn't screw with your brain from the standpoint of that doesn't look right, then we'll be okay. Like, it's kind of the opposite with powders, right? With powders, if you're building like a Crusader tank, right, and you're using powders to put when it's driving through the desert and it's grinding all this stuff, all this dust is going to get into crevices. So you have this light color in the crevice, and that's why you use a powder to do that. That screws with my brain and doesn't look right. Because you've got, in a shadow area, you have a lighter color. And that goes against the grain in my brain. This is kind of the opposite. Like you're used to seeing like a recess, but it's raised. So as long as it doesn't have that effect, then we should be okay. We're going to take almost all of this off, and we're going really light over this. And we'll be able to compare one wing versus the other one. And honestly, I find like this plane's a little too orange. And we're gonna add little rust stainy things here. That makes a huge difference. Not all over the place, but just in a couple places to make it look. Now, note the difference. I'm gonna flip this thing around, because flipping it around is gonna give you a closer view of what I'm seeing. Now, this is just preliminary. And I'm going to say it again. This is the first plane I've done. What could it be? Yeah, it's not the first. I've painted lots of shit before. I'm just doing the same methodology that I would do when I'm doing something like this. The same methodology. Okay, man. Thanks for stopping by again. You get a lot of breaks in England. You guys hiring? I can't even cross the street. I can't even cross the street in England. You got to get that whole wrong side of the road bullshit straightened out. I've been doing kind of the same mentality that I do with my figures. Like, if you don't know what you're going to paint something, but you know he's going to have blue pants, just paint the blue pants and move on. Just start committing to things that you're not inflexible about, but that you know you're going to want a certain color. I don't know what color I want. Number it is. Fine, don't worry about it. Do everything else. Then all I got to do is do the number. And I don't like this paint scheme, but these Nazi pricks decided to paint it this way. Okay? I didn't ask them to paint it this way, and I didn't ask them to be Nazi pricks. You know, the secret of dry brushing is don't put hardly any paint on there. Because if you overshoot the dry brushing, now you've created a lot of extra work for yourself. And I may end up having to put a yellow nose on this thing. I don't know yet. But I didn't want to get focused on that. Just like I'm not focused on the cockpit. It'll all turn fine. It'll all turn out fine. Let's hold this wing a little bit. We don't want to put this extra pressure on here and snap this thing and have to fix it. You've never painted a plane before? I said, it's not my first rodeo. It's my first event in this rodeo, but I've been to the rodeo before. Just like I know we're going to paint some of this vent. We're going to paint this different colors and things like that. But the main body, let's get the main body where we want it to be. Now let me turn this up. We can take this condom off. And I hope this turns out exactly how I expect it to, because that's going to motivate me to all of a sudden I'm doing aircraft too. Aircraft really that are focused on having a useful presence in the game that I'm using. Like I said, I would have picked up a Lysander that without any question. As I went to this show because stuff was like really, really inexpensive. I mean, I picked that Russian. I'm looking over there because it was stacked over there, but it's not there anymore. I picked up that Russian biplane and the 109F for $4 for both of them, and they're both good kits. Unlike this one, I would not call this a good kit. It's passable, but this isn't a good kit. The other Airfix one's better, but this one's not. That's why I wanted to wreck this one. Well, I really want to wreck them all. That's the purpose in getting them. It's not to put them on a stand and use them for air support in a game that every turn is like 15 seconds. Like that doesn't really work. All right, let's put this condom back on. The crooked spider condom. All right, let's see what we got here. Again, I'm not focused on the inside of the cockpit. They're like, man, you got to paint the cockpit first. Fuck that. That's irrelevant. That's not motivating. Just like the propeller, we haven't painted the propeller yet. I don't care. We're gonna get the body the right color. Yeah, it looks pretty good. And we haven't done the staining on it yet either. The drippings. Let's see here. And it's easy. Wouldn't you agree that what I do is easy? It's a lot of steps. And some people just like they run out of energy. That's what it is. It's not that my wife always says, don't say that. I said, yeah, it is. It's just you can do it too. You just gotta want to do it. Yeah, it doesn't look bad, does it? Now, at this point, it's going to have a white stripe. We're going to paint a white stripe back there, okay? And something with a nose cone and something with a propeller. Then we'll worry about, where's the little cockpit? I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. Yeah, it doesn't look bad. Doesn't look bad for a $4 model that's it's easy to reproduce. I could probably do 12 of these and they all look at different times and probably look all the same. And I'm going to put it on this type of ground. And probably on some kind of a stand like where's my big black stand here? I'm not going to use that. It's a little too thick. But something about the size of this, obviously not cut square. That would yeah, I think they have to have a yellow nose and maybe even a yellow tail. But I don't, and I'm going to put a number. I'll hand paint the number. We could handle that. It's even easier to do with these panel lines because you've got when you've got a surface that doesn't have any markings on it, it's hard to get the numbers right. But if you've got all these little panel lines, you got, okay, well, this goes from the beginning of this one to the beginning of the other one and that kind of thing. It should be fine. We're going to have these type of areas where like liquid and stuff goes in there and we can have these little lines that come off of it the same way that I do the tanks with the weathering on the tanks, not tremendously, but look at, we got a crooked spider on there. Let's be careful. All right. The same way that, we've got some rust and stuff on here in a couple different places, just so it doesn't look uniform, I don't think I'm going to make it very damaged. I could put the landing gear like, if this was on the stand and it was, crumpled in a certain way, obviously the front of the propeller is going to be bent. I think it'll do. I think it'll do well. And now I can worry about, okay, are the wingtips yellow? Is the nose yellow? That kind of stuff. So, but I don't want this to be a certain vehicle like that. Oh, that's Lieutenant whoever's plane. We don't want to do that. It's bad enough that I already picked the unit for it, but it gave me something there, which is it's like a little black face with white face. As if the hydraulics were destroyed and the landing gear collapsed. Yeah. And then it could be like a tank, and I'm probably going to do the wings like a little bit with it. Obviously, we're going to have to paint some darkness in there, but like they're collapsed there. I don't want it to be, and that's why I didn't glue them. Is that way, the wings aren't straight across. It's like collapsed. Do that near the engine exhaust and leading edges. Yeah. So I'm not going to put it on this because this is too thick. I want to go like half this thickness. And, we'll cut it so that it's got an irregular shape. Not like, oh, here's this square thing, Probably the same material as I do this stuff here. That's what this is. This is just a shim with a magnet on it. We won't magnetize it, but anyways, we made some progress. I made enough progress that I'm excited about it. If I had cogitated about the yellow and all that shit first, and I'm like, man, now it's like, okay, this is done. We're happy with, this is the base color of the body. Now we can go in and, add the other stuff on it. So, all right, folks, thanks for stopping by. We're going to go and get ready to go get tested. Whatever, the annual thing that I should be doing every year and I don't. All right, folks, see you on the next one, maybe even tonight. Bye-bye.